everyone, I'm Sunil. I welcome you back to my YouTube channel TechBasics. So if you remember, in the last video we have written some programs with the help of while loop, do while loop and so on. So today we'll also try to continue with the same, wherein we'll try to write some programs with while loop, do while loop and for loop, and then we'll go further and then we'll try to write programs with the help of nested loops. So let's go with example 6 over here. Example 6, display whether the given number is prime or not. So what is that you want to do over here? You want to accept a number from the user and you want to check whether that given number is a prime number or not. So basically we need to understand here what exactly we mean by a prime number. So a prime number is a number which is divisible by itself and it is divisible by 1. So that is what we call it as a prime number. So how do we code this, or how do we write this particular program? Go to our online software wherein you can say integer. You can take n for accepting a number, I for running a loop, and p to check whether it is prime number or not a prime number, and so on like that. So if suppose say your given number is 5, then what is that you need to do? You need to find out whether this number is divisible by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as we know, any given number is divisible by 1 and it is also divisible by itself. So what we'll do is we'll not divide that particular number by 1 and by itself. So if a given number is 5, we'll try to divide it by 2, 3 and 4. So when you divide the given number by 2, 3, 4, that is 5 by 2, 3, 4, if it is getting divisible any time, then you will say it is not a prime number. So in this case, what happens when you divide 5 by 2, the remainder is not going to be 0. That means it is not divisible. 5 by 3, it is not 0. Remainder is not 0. So it is not divisible. 5 by 4, the remainder is not going to be 0. So it is not divisible. Then you will say your number is prime. But in case say you have 6. So 6 you are going to divide by 2, 3, 4, 5. You will not take 1, you will not take 6. So now what happens? 6 by 2, the remainder is 0. Then you will say the number is not going to be a prime number because it has got some factor and so on. So how is that we are going to write this particular program? Let's try to understand that. First you give a message to the user saying that, dear user, you enter a number. And then accept the number by saying scan %d ampersand n. So now you got a number. Now that number can be 5, it can be 10, it can be any number. So what you do? You divide that number from 2 to n minus 1 because you don't take n, that is you don't take value from 1 to n. You go from 2 to n minus 1. So what I'll do is I'll make use of one more variable here called I, wherein I'll start I with 2 and then I will say I while I less than n. So when I say less than n, it will not go up to n, it will go up to n minus 1. So if the number is 6, it will go only up to 5. So what is that you need to do now? You need to divide the number by the value of I. Okay, so how do you write? If the number, you want to check the remainder, so don't use slash, instead you use % symbol, modulo. If n%i equals to 0, that means if the remainder is going to be 0, what do you do then? If the remainder is 0, what you can do is you can count how many times the remainder is 0. So you can take here one more variable called p and you initialize p with 0. Okay, and then if the remainder over here is 0, then you say p equals to p plus 1. That means what? your number got divided by the value of I for one time. Then you will say P equals to P plus 1. Okay. And then you write I plus plus. Just try to understand this. Once again, I will go through. So you accept a number. Suppose say your number is 4. Just take an example. Your number is 4. Then what do you have to do? You have to divide this number by 1, 2, 3, 4. But we know a number is divisible by 1 and all the numbers are divisible by itself. So I will not take 1 and 4. What I'll do? I will take 2, 3. That's all. So you take value of I as 2 initially and then you go up to less than n. That means it will go only up to 3. So what happens here now? 4 divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0. Yes, when the remainder is 0, you increment the value of P. So incrementing P is to indicate that there is a factor and then you increment the value of I. So I next time becomes 3. 3 less than 4. Yes, so you will divide here, it is not 0, so it will not get incremented. So once now the loop completes. Now after the loop, you try to display here initially the value of P. P equals to %D and you display the value of P. It's only for understanding. So just see now, if you, there is a 4 over here which you need to. So what do you do now? Enter a number. You give a number as say 4. So then what happens? It is getting divisible by 2. So P value becomes 1. So that means what? When P is 1 or more, then that means your number is not a prime number. Take example of 5. You give the number as 5. So you will divide 5 by 2, 3, 4. So it is not going to get divided any number of any of these numbers. So then your result is going to be, or P value is going to be 0. Now what you do? You take one more number 6. So you are going to divide 6 by 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you divide 6 by 2, you get the remainder 0. When you divide 6 by 3, you get the remainder 0. So 2 factors are there for 6. Then you say your number is not a prime number. So what is that we are going to do now? So based on the value of P, you will say if P equals to 0, which means what? The given number, you can write like this, given number is a prime number. Given number is prime number and try to display that number over here. Else you say, else what you will write now? Else you say the given number is not a prime number. So that is how you can execute the program. Just try to understand this now. You give 4, then you see over there when you give the value as 4, the result has to be the number is prime. Just run this. You can give the number 4 and then you will get P value is 1 over there. That means what? The number is not a prime number. Okay, so you can display this value of P for understanding or you can avoid it, not a problem. Okay, just see this again. 4, the value of P is 1 means what? There is one factor. Okay, if you take 5, P will be 0. That means there is no factor for that. If you take 6, it is having 2 factors, so it is not a prime number. If you take 13, it is a prime number. If you take 21, it has got factors, so it is not a prime number, and so on. So that is how you are going to write a program for finding out whether a given number is prime or not. Try to understand this once again. It's very important program normally when you write the exam. So first year you will find that these kind of questions will be asked to you in your examinations, which are lab examinations or your external examination and so on. So we are accepting a number over here first and then we are trying to divide that number from 2 to n minus 1. And when you divide, if you find that the remainder happens to be 0, then you try to increment one variable, which can be any variable. Like here we have taken the variable as P. So if you get P value incremented, it means what? The given number is not a prime number, and if the P value remains 0, that means there are no factors and the given number you can call it as a prime number over there. We'll try to go with the next example. So the next example over here is you want to display the numbers as, you can say 0, you can take it as 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13 and so on. So if you go by this series, what is this series? I'll try to explain you over here. If you go by this series, so you want to display the numbers in this fashion. You want to display 0, then you want to display 1, then 2, then 3, then 5, then 8, then 13 and so on, like, which means what? This is called Fibonacci series, which means what? You will take any two numbers as the initial numbers and then you will generate the series from the third number. So third number will be addition of first two numbers and the fourth number will be addition of second and third. Fifth number will be addition of third number and the fourth number. So any given number over here will be addition of previous two numbers and so on. So it is our choice over here. Whatever numbers you want at the beginning, you can take two numbers over there and then based on that you need to generate the series over here. So how is that we are going to write this program? So here you can go with integer main. Then you can take integer f, f1, f2. Why all these required? We'll try to understand this, and then you can take one more variable called I. So what I'll do here is the first number I'll call it as f. I'll put the first number as 0. Second number I'll call it as 1. Okay, and then once you know first and second number, then you need to know how many numbers you want to generate in a series. So say I want to generate 10 numbers. So I'll take here I value as 1 and then I'll say I less than or equal to 10. So you can have any number of values over here. That's not a problem. So here I have taken this loop in order to see that after the given two numbers, you will generate 10 other numbers in the series. Okay. So the first number is going to be 0, the second number is going to be 1. So what do you do here? You display these two numbers right over here. So you can say printf %d, give some space %d, and then you can display the value of f and you can display the value of f1 over there. So this integer I value, make it equal to 1 and keep it over here. Not a problem. Yeah. Then write a for loop over there. Now what do you do in a for loop? You already have displayed the first number and you have displayed the second number. So now you want to generate the third number. As we said, the third number is going to be a number which is addition of the first number as well as second number. So what do you do over here? You say f2 equals to, you are going to write it as f plus f1. So which means what? F is 0, f1 is 1. So your new f2 is going to be 0 plus 1, which is 1. And then what do you do? See here. You got the numbers like this: 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. So this is f and this is f1. So the next f2 is going to be what? This plus this. So you got new f2. Now once you get the third number, what you need to do is the f which is 0, now shift it to the next number, and f1 which is 1, you shift it to the next number. So what is that I do here now? I will say now f equals to f1, I will say f1 equals to f2, and then I will print here the next value, that is %d. I'll print the value called f2. And then I will write here I++. So what is that we have done here? You have displayed the first value, you have displayed the second value over here, and then in order to get the third number, you are saying third number equals to the first number plus the second number. Once you get the third number, then what you are trying to do is, you are trying to shuffle the value of the variable. So f which was over here, now you have shifted over here, f1 which was over here, you have shifted over here, and so on. So try to run this particular program, then you can run the program and see the output of this. So how you got 0, 1, these are the two numbers that we have given over here. So you displayed that. The next number is what? f2. f2 is what? f plus f1. So you got that. And then next time what happens, your f becomes f1, f1 becomes f2. So this loop continues for the second time. So the next time it will be 1 plus 1. So your new f2 will be equal to 2. Next time it will be 1 plus 2. The new f2 will be equal to 3 and so on. So in that way, you can generate any number of values in this particular series. So if I reduce it to 5, you will see that your output starts with 0, 1 and then goes only 5 numbers after that and so on. So it is not compulsory that you start with 0, 1. Whatever number you like, you can take as the first number and the second number, and then you can have any number of values in that particular series. So this is how you are going to write a program called Fibonacci series with the help of while loop. Then we'll go with the next example wherein you want to display the numbers as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For how many number of times? You want to do it for 5 number of times. So this is where we need to now make use of the concept of nested loops. It can be nested for loop, it can be nested while loop, it can be nested do while loop and so on like. So how is that this particular nested for loop is going to execute? Let's understand this. Nested, I will start with nested for loops, then you can write the same program with nested while, do while and so on. So nested for loop is something like we counting something with the help of our fingers in a large number. Say for example, if you want to count 100 on your 10 fingers, so you got 10 fingers for your hand, on your hand, and then if you want to count 100, so what is that we are going to do? First question, whether we can do it or not. So the answer for that should be yes. Now if the answer is yes, how is that we are going to do? How is that I am going to count 100 using my 10 fingers? So what is that we need to do? So you need to practice it in this fashion. You need to count first 10 numbers on 10 fingers. So when you count 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you say on the other hand 1, which means what? You have counted 10 for the first time. Now again count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you say 2, which means what? You have counted 10 for 2 times. Again count and then make the value as 3. So when you say 3 times you have counted, meaning 10 numbers you counted for 3 times, which means what? You have counted 30 numbers over there. So if you do it for 10 times, 10 fingers for 10 times, it becomes 100. So how is that we are going to write a nested for loop? So you can write it in this fashion. For I equals to 1, I less than or equal to 5, I plus plus. So this for loop, if you execute it alone, how many times it is going to execute? It will execute only for 5 number of times. But now within this for loop, if I write one more for loop, then I call it as nested loop. For loop within for loop, you call it as nested loop, as we have done for nested if statement. So the next for loop, for j equals to 1, j less than equals to 5, j plus plus. So what it means for us, within this now you are going to write the statements. Again, if you have group of statements, you will make it as a compound statement using these braces. If it is only one statement to be written, then you need not to make use of these braces and so on. Now how is that this is going to execute, and how many times the statements given over here are going to get executed? So to understand that, let's go with this. So when the value of I, initially you will find the value of I equals to 1. So when value of I is 1, the value of j will run from or change from 1 to 5, which means what? For every count of I, value of j is going to change for 5 times. So when I is 1, j will change from 1 to 5. When I is 2, again j will change from 1 to 5. When I is 3, j will again change from 1 to 5. When I is 4, j will change from 1 to 5. When I is 5, j will change from 1 to 5. It means what? The loop is now going to run for 5 into 5 number of times. That means the loop is going to run for 25 number of times. So hope it is clear how the for loops to be written. One for loop within another for loop. So then we will try to make use of these nested for loop, and then we'll try to write program which will display us the numbers in this fashion. You can display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you want to do it for multiple number of times. So in this, what is that we need to understand is how many rows in a how many columns in a row you want to display. You need to find out that. So we want to basically display 5 rows over here, and in each row we want to display 5 numbers, which means what? In all, you want to display 25 numbers over here. So how is that we are going to write a program using nested for loop? Let's try to understand this. So I will take here two variables, as we said, I and j. And then I will write two for loops wherein I will say I value equals to 1, I less than or equals to 5, I plus plus. Why I am taking I equals to 1 to 5? Because I want 25 numbers, and then I'll say j equals to 1, j less than or equals to 5, j plus plus. So if I do so, and then if I say printf here, I have to print the value. So I'll say printf %d. Now a question that comes is whether I have to print the value of I or I have to print the value of j. So what is that we have seen? If I take the value of I as 1, initially the value of I is 1, so j will change from 1 to 5. If the value of I is 2, j will again change from 1 to 5. When the value of I is 3, j will change from 1 to 5. So if I print here the value of j, then you see what happens. So if I write the program in this fashion, there will be some problem in the output. You can just check. Your output has been displayed in this fashion, and we are not clear how many rows it has printed and so on. So what is that you need to do is you need to see that after printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it has to change the line, and between the numbers you want to have some space. So you can give some space over here, not a problem, and then when you execute you will get the space between the numbers. But now after printing 5 numbers, you want to have change of line. So what do you do here? Within this you can write here printf. You want to have change of line, so you say \n and close it over here. That means what? Whenever the value of I changes, you will get change of line. So I value is now going to change for 5 times, so you will get 5 times the line gets changed. So see this now? So your output is going to be like this. How it happened? How you are going to get this output? How you got this output? So when I is 1, we know that the value of j changes from 1 to 5. So what you are displaying now? You are displaying the value of j. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it comes over here to the first for loop again. And then the line changes. I becomes 2, line changes. Again j starts from 1 and it goes up to 5. So second time you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. So instead of I printing here j, if I print the value of I, what happens? Think for a while. Yeah. So it will print the value of I. So when I is 1, j will change from 1 to 5. So 5 times it is going to print the value of I, which is 1. So you get 1, 1, 1, 1 for 5 times, 2 for 5 times, 3 for 5 times and so on. So you can see the change over there now. So just by changing I to j, your output has changed in this fashion. Now you can as well write this particular loop in this fashion in the decreasing order. So I equals to 5 greater than equals to 1, then you can say here I minus minus. So then what happens? The loop will now execute. These two for loops will execute for 25 times because this is going to run for 5 times. This is going to run for 5 times. 5 into 5. This will run for 25 times. But there will be a difference now. So if the value of I here starts with 5 and j starts with 1 to 5. So if you print here the value of j, then you are going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 times. So that's not going to have any change. But instead here, if you are going to print the value of I, then what you are going to get? You will get 5, 5, 5 for 5 times, 4 for 5 times, 3 for 5 times, 2 for 5 times, 1 for 5 times, and so on like. So that is how you are going to get the output over there. Now here, if you again reverse this loop also, j equals to 5, j greater than equals to 1, and then you say j minus minus, then you can check the output over here. And you print here j. So what will be the output over here? You get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that is what we need. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 we require for 5 number of times. Now the second for loop over here we have written as j equals to 5 greater than equals to 1 j minus minus, and then we are printing the value of j. So whether the first for loop is written in a forward direction or backward direction, the output is going to be same over here. Let's say I starts with 1, I less than or equals to 5, I plus plus. If I say this, and then if I run the program again, the output is going to be same, because the first for loop over here, when you are printing j, the first for loop is only to count how many times the second for loop is going to get executed. So that is how you can write programs wherein you can write a for loop within a for loop, and this is what you are going to call it as nested loops. Here we have written nested for loop program. So then I will give you and I will show you more exercise on this, more programs on this, wherein you can just say I equals to 1, I less than or equal to 5, you can say I plus plus, and here what you do now is you can practice it in this fashion. You can start j with 1 and you can say j less than or equal to I j plus plus. So what is that? It is now going to display the output as, what is the first value of I? It is 1. So what happens? The second for loop now will run for how many times? It will not run for 5 times now, because j value starts with 1 and j will be less than or equal to I. Only when this condition is true, it will execute this. So that means I is 1. So the second for loop now will execute only for 1 time. When I is 2, the second for loop will start with 1 and go up to 2 only. When I is 3, the second for loop will go from 1 and it will go only up to 3, and so on. So the output you are going to get here will be 1 you will get, 1, 2 you will get, 1, 2, 3 you will get, and so on like. So you get 1 in the first line, 1, 2 in the second line, 1, 2, 3 in the third line, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the fourth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the fifth line, and so on like. So now you can try reversing this particular loop, wherein again you say I equals to 5, I greater than equals to 1, and then you can say I minus minus, and then here you can print the value of I instead of j. Then you can see over there you got 5 times, 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, and 1 time. So that is how you can understand these for loops, by changing the value of this I and changing the value of j. So overall, how many number of times this particular statement executes depends on how many times the second for loop is getting executed for each value of first for loop. So in this case, first for loop is going to execute for 5 times, and second for loop is going to execute for 1 time, then for 2 times, then for 3 times, then for 4 times, and then for 5 times, which means what? 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 number of times. Both the for loops are going to get executed, and the statement here printf is going to get executed. So you can, we have also written a program of this kind over here, and then you can go with a next program for this, wherein you want to display all ones, all twos, all threes, 4, and then 5. So how is that we are going to do this? So what is that you want there? You want 2 for loops again, because you have number of rows and number of columns. You run the first for loop for 5 times, you run the second for loop for \n, that is to have change of line, and then the second for loop j equals to 1 less than equals to 5 j plus plus, and then you can say over here printf %d j. So what happens now? If I want all ones, if you see the program, we want all ones, all twos and all. So when I is 1, j value will change for 5 times. So if I print here I, 1 will be printed for 5 number of times. So that is how you get the output for this and so on. So in the next video, we'll try to understand how do we write programs with the help of arrays. So we'll try to understand the concept of arrays in my next video. So please try to subscribe to the channel and then try to share the videos, and please do write the comments, because your feedback is very important for me. Based on the feedback, I can do some changes in my content and in my lecture delivery. Thank you.